Hey, Jason. It's going well. How are you? Are we ready? Good evening. Welcome to the September 5th Plan and Zoning Commission. I will go over the rules and procedures, and then we'll check who's on the line. The Plan and Zoning Commission is generally an advisory body to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing and make the final decision on all matters before the Commission other than site plans and subdivision plats, unless denials or conditional approvals thereof are appealed. Please contact the City Clerk or Development Services Department staff for details on council hearings. Applicants will be given 10 minutes to present the request. Proponents and then opponents from the public are allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. An applicant is then allowed a 5-minute rebuttal if necessary. The hearing will then be closed and the commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration, and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report, unless an individual present in the audience or a member of the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. Before we get started, we can check who's on the line tonight. Katie or is it Richard? Rick? Anyone?
I'm here. This is Katie.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right. So we'll start with the motion to approve the meeting minutes for our last meeting.
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Todd. All those in favor of approval, please raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Abstentions, same sign. Kate?
I approve.
Thank you. We have a couple of items on the consent agenda tonight. I will read over those, starting with item number 1, which is a request from Riverview DSM LLC for the following regarding property located at 110 East Court Avenue. A, to determine as to whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with Plan DSM. B, to amend Plan DSM to revise the future land use classification of the property from public, semi-public to downtown mixed use. And C, to rezone the property from P2 Public Civic and Institutional District to DX2 Downtown District to allow the existing building to be used for a mix of commercial uses. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull this item from consent to be discussed on tonight's public hearing agenda? Seeing none, is there anyone in the commission who would like to pull this item? Seeing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 2 is a request from Ryan Rivas for the following regarding property located in the vicinity of 1760 East Park Avenue. A, determination as to whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with the Plan DSM. And B, to rezone the property from N3A Neighborhood District to P2 Public Civic and Institutional District to allow the property to be assembled with the property to the east that is used for an assembly place of worship use. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull this item from the consent agenda for it to be discussed tonight? Seeing none, is there anyone in the commission who would like to pull this item? Seeing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 3 is a city-initiated request to rezone 3 parcels within the Southeast Industrial Urban Renewal Area, located along the East Army Post Road to the west of Southeast 45th Street and to the east of Southeast 36th Street, and bounded by East Army Post Road to the north and East Pine Avenue to the south. A, determination as to whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with the Plan DSM, and B, to rezone property from A, Agricultural District and PUD Harvest Hills PUD, Planned Unit Development District, to I-1 Industrial District. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull this item from consent so that it is discussed tonight? See a hand up, so we will pull item number 3. And there is a request to move item number 4 to the consent agenda as well. So I will go ahead and read that. Request from Hubble Realty Company for review and approval of a second amendment to the Gray Station PUD conceptual plan regarding property located in the vicinity of 1300 Tuttle Street. A, determination as to whether the requested rezoning PUD amendment, the requested PUD amendment is in conformance with the Plan DSM. B, amend the Plan DSM to revise the future land use classification for portions of the property from neighborhood mixed use to downtown mixed use. And C, to amend PUD Gray Station PUD planned unit development to allow adjustments in building heights, density, and uses within certain sub-areas of the PUD. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to keep this item on the public hearing agenda tonight? Anyone on the commission? Seeing none, this item can be moved to consent, and we will have item number 1, item number 2, and item number 4 on the consent agenda tonight. Can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda? Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Kate, how would you vote?
I approve.
Any opposed? Same sign? The consent agenda is approved. Motion passes. Item number 3, I will not read the item again, and Bert will go over the presentation from staff. Just hand it over to him.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Bert Dross, planning staff for the city of Des Moines. Item number 3 is a request to rezone about 220 acres along the south side of East Army Post Road, just to the west of the bypass. If you remember back in June at the first meeting, the commission reviewed and recommended approval of the Southeast Industrial Area Urban Renewal Plan. And at that time, the commission also recommended approval of a land use amendment for this area to revise the future land use designation to industrial. So after that went to the commission, that was adopted by City Council in July. So the area that is being proposed for rezoning to industrial is already designated as industrial on the city's comprehensive land use plan. So here is the area that we're talking about. It's again on the south side of East Army Post Road, just to the west of Southeast 45th Street. I'll go to Des Moines maps to give you a better context. So it's all of the blue area that's south of Army Post Road. So the bypass comes along here to the east and to the south. And again, back in June and July, this area was already amended to industrial on the land use plan. So this rezoning is just a follow-up to that. Right now, this whole area is generally used for just agricultural purposes. And we can come back to this map if we need to. If I can find the right one, here we go. All right. These just a few photos actually taken from Google Street View. Like I was saying earlier, it's predominantly agricultural farmland right now. It's being rezoned to industrial kind of speculatively. There's no known uses, but getting some industrial uses out here would definitely help pay for extending utilities to this area. We hear from people in this area that there's no water, there's no sewer, so getting some industrial tax base here would definitely help extend those utilities closer to the residents. And this is just the roll call from August 5 where City Council initiated this rezoning. And then the staff report. As I mentioned, since the land use plan is already industrial for this area, staff is supportive of the rezoning. We have recommended the rezoning be subject to prohibition of these 9 uses. I won't read them, but they're, I guess, the least desirable uses in the I-1 industrial district. The I-1 industrial district generally allows for warehousing and some light manufacturing within buildings. It also allows for outdoor storage in accordance with screening and setback requirements. But again, staff is recommending approval, just subject to prohibition of these uses. As far as our consent map, we notified 250 feet. We only got back 1 comment card, and that was from that down here at the southwest corner. Somebody is unsure of or undecided if they're in support or not. And then we did hold a neighborhood meeting last week. We had about 6 people attend that. Everybody who attended was fairly supportive of the rezoning just because they know that getting some industrial development down there will definitely help pay for utilities, which would ultimately benefit them. So. All right, does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions for staff?
Can I ask one general one? Like, liquor stores and tobacco stores are allowed in I-1 normally?
Is retail, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And this makes it definitely clear that they wouldn't be permitted here.
Any other questions for staff? I guess I have a quick question, Bert. For the self-storage, that's more about the business itself. It's not like a warehousing that uses storage. Like if there was a warehouse, they could still store stuff. Not as and the business model of a self.
I-1 would allow both types of storage. It would allow a warehouse for a large format.
But in the
And
specific,
also mini.
the one they use that specifically outlined as self-storage, that's not allowed as recommended.
Okay, yeah.
Specific to the business model of.
Think of it as mini warehousing, self-storage.
Like your storage mart,
Yes,
but
Right.
larger warehousing storage that will be allowed.
that's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah, and the idea of this rezoning is to encourage the bigger, large-scale developments, not so much these neighborhood services.
Yeah, I think the vision laid out by the urban renewal plan is really thinking of this as like a business park opportunity. We did feel that the I-1 district made more sense because the biggest difference between like that and say an EX is the allowance for some outdoor storage. We think that might be needed to execute the vision for the area, but eliminate these conditions really helped us, in our minds, narrow this down to more of that business park-like setting that the plan is trying to establish.
Any other questions for staff?
All right,
Thanks, Bert. So the applicant is the city. Is there anyone on the in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this project? Anyone who would like to speak against this project? Please come up to the podium, state your name and address or your zip code, and you have up to 5 minutes.
And sign in after you speak. Hi, my name is Carol Maher. I live in downtown Des Moines. And I was here on May 30th when Mr. Poole presented the urban renewal plan. And he was asked by a member of the commission what types of industries would be included. And at that time, he said they didn't know at that point. So I'm happy to see that there's a list of exclusions here that include the old sin industries like adult entertainment, liquor store, tobacco, and then the sort of, old economy polluters like with vehicles and things like that. But I think that we should really consider new economy uses that I think that would be as adverse or worse or even more adverse than those listed here, such as Amazon-type warehouses that have 24/7 semi-trucks moving in and out. It sort of causes neighbors who live there to sort of be living next to a truck stop. These trucks pollute our air and climate, and they chew up our roads. And then we often give them big subsidies, so they really don't, pay all that much to our bottom line. Then another industry I think we should consider including on the list of not approved uses would be data centers that create lots of construction jobs, but once they're done, they're staffed by a couple of dozen folks, and they suck lots and lots of electricity off the grid. They also use copious amounts of water, our precious water, that we know we don't have enough clean water in this state, let alone here in our city, and to have these companies that are owned and run by billionaires that will, again, probably get TIF funds to put it in there, to be sucking our precious resource like water, a life-saving resource, is really, we should really not encourage that. And then finally, we should include industrial farming, also known as CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations. The odor, the waste, and the runoff of into our precious water sources should be enough to get them excluded from the industries list. And we should really consider environmental justice when we think about this parcel, because it is in a already sort of environmentally not perfect area, and we need to think of in the future what types of industries will be the polluters and the users of our natural resources, and consider them to not be welcome in that parcel. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition of this project?
Can we ask one question as a follow-up to the speaker or no?
For staff? Yes.
I was meaning for the speaker, because I'm just curious, like what?
Sure.
Is there a unifying, so Carol, is there a unifying requirement that could actually be put in, because you identify a few things, but is there a unifying strategy of how?
Bad environmental industries? I don't know. I don't know.
Seems
I don't know even if those are allowed in the industrial use, but it seems like the ones listed here are sort of old economy, and we should make sure that we consider new economy uses that could slide in there and may not be addressed in what we've seen so far.
Thanks, Carol. I'll double check. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against this project? Anyone neutral? If not, the city does have a rebuttal.
Yeah, I think we were happy to answer any questions you might have. Just clarify, a lot of the animal control stuff is not actually in zoning, it's in a different chapter of the city code. There really isn't an ability to do large-scale confined operations within the city limits, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything else to add.
Well, I guess I am curious on this, because I think Carol raises a bunch of very good points, which I think are ones that I've often, to everyone else's, I think, irritation, I understand, raise all the time with our urban renewal plans. Because every time we say we're going to run this urban renewal plan, we're going to enable TIF, but we don't put any restrictions on it, they're going to ensure that we actually return well. So I understand, I may differ in Carol that I'm not sure there is a way to define of just a bad business, right, or a bad environmental business. I'd rather have a better metric. But The thing that we do seem to keep doing and do keep enabling, and I think we probably want to think more strategically about, is how do we ensure the investment actually demonstrates a return? Like we had the same discussion around Carpenter, right? Carpenter is a good example of TIF dollars that highly likely will actually not benefit the community if that project is successful. I'm wondering here again, the Amazon is a great example. If we actually invest in an actual, big old distribution center where people are debatable whether or not they're getting sufficient breaks or having a sufficient quality of life within that building, and we're still tearing up the roads, and we're planning to tear up our roads, it seems like we might want to think through, if we're willing to say you can't have liquor, tobacco, or all the fun stuff, it seems like we might want to also think of how do we actually make sure that we're restricting this from being able to be used in a way where we're investing more than is being brought back. Data centers are another good one. They bring a lot of construction, but now I've got 2 people running that thing. Everyone else who's a high-value job is sitting in California, and we're paying for it because we actually have energy. It's only 10% of the national average. Those sort of things seem like they would be more important to me than worrying about vehicle rentals, right? And obviously, we probably have enough self-storage all over the place, but this 9 seems like it is. I agree with her, potentially incomplete. I don't know what the answer is. But it would be interesting to see if we could be smarter with this in the same way we really, really need to be smarter with our urban renewal plans every time, because every time they fall short of what we say we want them to do.
Right. And, I mean, it's ultimately up to City Council and maybe the Urban Design Review Board if incentives are offered. So just because there's an industrial use that wants to go in there, there's no guarantee they would get the incentives, even if they're available. So there's, but I get what you're saying, but I don't know how we would, I get what you're saying about like the Amazons, the warehouses type. I don't know how we would prohibit one type of warehouse and not throw out the baby with the bathwater.
That would be a separate conversation with economic development
Right.
per project, correct?
Yeah.
Like setting the stipulations as to what's the ROI.
Right.
Right, and I think Bert alluded to this, that zoning really talks about broad categories of use, It may have some like performance standards, they are typically developed to ensure it doesn't have negative impacts on the adjoining uses, but we don't typically delve into the operational models with zoning.
Counterpoint, liquor store is a pretty narrow use case, right? Liquor store is pretty narrow, right? I mean, we should debate, should we have pot shop on here as well? I mean, or I guess marijuana store? I mean, I think we are choosing to put 9 specific items. Self-service storage is a specific type of business, probably 5 or 6 suppliers in this city, right? So we're excluding 5 or 6 specific businesses with one general line out of 9. And I think I understand we're an advisory body. I understand we don't set the end item, but it is within the remit of plan and zoning to be more thoughtful about it. And so I guess my only pushback there is, I think Carol's points are very, very, very well said. This is where that thinking, strategic thinking, is supposed to be developing the recommendations that the city council acts upon. I think these are insufficient. I'm not saying I'm opposed to this tonight. Seems fine enough. I'm just saying it seems very odd that we can explicitly say liquor store, and the bigger problem, which is a bunch of trucks going up and down a very small patch of road that we're going to have to keep fixing, probably paying them to be there, breaking them, is a bigger strategic problem we should be dealing with here.
And I think what Jason's point was earlier, that the vision for this area is like a planned business park or a planned industrial park. And I guess these are the ones that staff didn't feel contributed to the planned business park atmosphere.
So is there a way that we can incorporate Carol's concerns into this?
I mean, the commission can make a recommendation to the council, and you have the right to do so. This is our recommendation as staff. We think as Bert already said, we were tying this to the character that we had envisioned for the area as more of a business park. I don't know that I think warehousing is a part of that, and I don't know that we're going to get into the model of Amazon versus a different type of warehouse. They're all going to have truck traffic. Road infrastructure needs to be repaired. I think that's part of the point of trying to get development down this area. But our recommendation is this, and you're all welcome to forward your own on to the council.
I'm not trying to make a massive headache out of something that was supposed to be consent agenda, but it does follow on to a point which when this was presented last time, I think the minutes are very, very clear that the last one, I was less than overwhelmed with the fact that our economic development did not have a plan for what they wanted, was unable to identify what they didn't want, was also unable to identify the keys that allowed similar failures in other places to fail, was unable to be articulated. And now we say we have 9 specific items, and it sounds like we haven't actually learned from what we asked about
Right,
last time.
and like we said, there's no known uses. It's really to get this site to be shovel-ready. So if we were to wait until we knew what use was going to go in there and then do the rezoning to allow it, then we can't market the site as being a shovel-ready site. So that's another part of it I failed to mention earlier. We want to have it certified as a shovel-ready site.
Are you opposed to adding like a data center to exclude that?
I don't think staff would mention or be supportive of that.
I think.
Why?
We have to be careful with the data centers because there's large data centers and there's small data centers. There's some smaller regional data centers that don't require the energy use and the water use that the large ones do. And I don't want to prohibit those businesses from being able to have this as an opportunity to be in Des Moines instead of Altoona or somewhere else.
Yeah, and I guess a liquor store could be something similar to Hy-Vee.
Right.
You know, it has a liquor store, but it's like the balance of.
Right.
Well, but what about an actual custom distillery? That's an industrial operation. Is that not a liquor store?
That's not,
Yeah, it would be.
not a liquor store.
Yeah, that'd be light manufacturing.
Well, and I will remind the commission that we're dealing with some very large properties that will likely be subdivided. So we will get a chance to see a potential preliminary plat at some point, maybe.
Right, the preliminary plat would come to the commission, and then also if any of the future site plans need design alternatives, type 2 design alternatives, those could come to the commission as well.
Any other questions for staff? If not, we can go ahead and close the public hearing and let the commission deliberate. We have a motion to move staff recommendation. Unless there's additional discussions, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Kate, how would you vote?
This is Katie. I approve.
Approved. Thank you. Motion passes. That is the only item of the evening. Are there any director reports?
No, I think your packet included the draft agenda for the next meeting. The next meeting will probably be a little bit longer. We'll also have, once we have a package of code amendments that'll be included on there. We're getting those ironed out, so that's why that item is a little bit vague at this point. But we intend to have that prepared for you guys and possibly released sooner than the rest of the packet. It just depends on timing. But anyway, that's all I have.
Thanks, Jason. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you.